B'Sol Tovot to everybody. Our month of Cheshvan, a new month. Cheshvan is sponsored by the Silver family in memory of Bas Yafega Bas Yisrael. The Polsteins, they learn Ishmas Frida Sima Bas Yitzchak. By the American family for the refuah shlema of their son Hillel Tzvi Yehuda and for protection of all Chayalim. And by Tal Gilboa and Yaakov Steiner in honor of our holy Chayalim that are protecting Am Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael, Medinat Yisrael. This week is sponsored by Meira Barlev, Meira, in memory of your Abba, right? Meir ben Avram on his 62nd Yortzeh. Wow. Huh? Wow. Tehen Ishmas Atzura B'Tzura Chaim. Wow, okay.
Good news. Denise called me this morning. I'm a great grandmother.
Mazel Tov. Chanasar is a great grandmother. Your great grandson and you should bring Mashiach together. I mean, wow, you're a great grandmother. You've been a you've been a grandmother. You've been a grandmother for many years, and you've been great.
She gets the hyphen now.
Yeah, right. Now, it's just an Indian of a hyphen, yeah. Okay, Chavra, let's learn. Let's learn these words: Mashiach, 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 the Geula, the Geula, the Geula. Thinking about Mashiach. Did everybody get a copy? Does anyone need?
Yeah.
So, are there extras there? Okay. En habayshan lamed. Yifshal litbayesh. If you need a copy, you grab it, you get it. All right. So we started last week a very powerful piece in the teachings that we have about the days of Mashiach. Very, very strong. I guess you could pass these back down to whoever may need. And we began speaking about this concept that's called Hesech Hadas. Something we have to understand. We have to understand a very fundamental principle that Chazal teach us about the coming of Mashiach, that it's going to be coming. We learned that there's a statement that says Mashiach is going to come through a distraction. Hesech Hadas, by being distracted. And we saw that that's not exactly what the Gemara says, because we have a problem. We're always talking about Mashiach, we're always davening about Mashiach, we're always supposed to be anticipating Mashiach, and then the Gemara comes and tells me, listen, Mashiach's only going to come if you're distracted. How does that shtim? And that's what we were speaking about last time. And we learned the Gemara that says that three things come with Hesech Hadas. Three things happen when there's in a distractive state of mind, or we learned that it's more a surprise state of mind. Mashiach, finding a Metzia, finding something that you weren't expecting, and a krav, a scorpion, and a scorpion. And we saw the Gemara there that Rabbi Zera told his students that were he told them, they were talking about Mashiach, and he told them, stop doing what you're doing, you're going to be distancing the arrival of the Mashiach. What were they doing? They were calculating. That's what we learned last week. They were trying to calculate based on whatever calculations they had, saying, it seems like this should be there, here, it's going to come here. We have a whole chapter on calculations. We're not there yet. But Rabbi Zera was telling his students, that's not going to bring that. That actually keeps the Mashiach more distant, because it makes the whole concept of Hesech Hadas is definitely not what happens when you're sitting there trying to calculate when Mashiach is going to come. And like we spoke about last week, all those calculations, they don't do good for us. They don't do good for us. I shouldn't say us, I should say for me. Every time I've heard, with the best of intentions, saying, at this point, at this inyan, when this happens, when this country does this, when that does this, and you're thinking, okay, this is what we've been waiting for. And then that time passes and it doesn't happen. So it's not a matter of weakening the emunah in the coming of Mashiach, but what it probably does is that it weakens our emunah in chachamim, which is not a good thing at all. We want to listen to the words of the wise, of the righteous sages, and have their words have a deep effect on the way that we conduct our lives. But when there are predictions that take place, and based on those predictions, it weakens my strength, makes me feel like, I'm done Rebbe hopping. I'm done flocking from tzaddik to tzaddik with a prediction here, prediction there. It's lotov. It brings to Yeush. It's not so good. So what we're going to be we're continuing with today, finishing this ma'amar. It's on page 60. I think you have it to the first page by you. Right, actually, it's only back in for 60. We've got up to the second paragraph over here, Shnei Pratim. We're going to understand this, the whole thing we started learning last week much better when we take a look at the other two things that I mentioned in the Gemara, finding a Metzia and being bitten by a scorpion, in order to understand what Chazal meant when they said, Mashiach only comes behesach hadas. Mashiach only comes when you're surprised, in a surprised state of mind. שני הפרטים האחרים באותו מאמר ממשיכים עד כמה אין המחשבה והציפייה לקהילה סותרות את הסך הדס. If we understand Metzia and Akrav, we will also understand how this doesn't contradict everything we've learned right now between the tension of anticipation and הסך הדס. אדם יכול להתהלך כל היום במחשבה שהוא רוצה למצוא מציאה. You can walk around all day long saying, wow, it'd be great to stumble upon a gewaldik, you name it, whatever the mitzvah is that would be, nice in your eyes. But would it not, when it actually happens, would it not be a surprise? And this does connect a little bit to how we ended last week's shir about birth. As much as you know this is going to happen, and as much as there's anticipation that the child, Be'ezra Hashem Yitbarach, will be born, the moment that kid is born, it's like, oh, this is what we were waiting for, so this makes sense? No. What's the element of surprise that takes place when a child is born? Like on what level, on what realm does the element of surprise hit you when your child is born? What do you think? Huh? Every single level in the world. And yet, you could have gone to every single, what are those Hakdamas called, the shirim? What's the word? Lama, right? You could go to it all. They'll tell you, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. It's all there, right? And then what ends up happening the moment that it happens? The moment that it happens and the baby's born, what's that?
It's like time stops.
Everything stops, and the element of surprise on absolutely on an emotional, on a regesh level, goes to a completely different world. So as much as you could be anticipating this, when it happens, it's as if this is coming from out of mamash, a different world. Now what really is taking place is something that we mentioned yesterday in Shul. It's called the expansion of consciousness. What happens to you at that moment, when something so massive takes place, is that suddenly your ability to sense grows in ways that you couldn't imagine. There's an expansion of awareness and consciousness that happens at that moment, which will be the exact same language we're going to use when Mashiach comes as well. As Mashiach is coming. It's all based and aligned with the expansion of consciousness. Let's look back inside. Fourth line. O Adam shemalech basadeh. Let's take a person that's walking through a field. Mitoch muda'ut matmedet, and he's constantly thinking about them. No, he knows that what? L'sakanat ha'akravim shebasoviva. He knows, he's aware that there are scorpions here in this field. Haim yuchal ladat merosh matai b'diuk yakotz oto akrav? Can you know exactly at what moment you'll be bitten by a scorpion? You don't know. Even if you know that it's around here. Kach gam ha'geula. So too with Mashiach, with redemption. Anu tzrichim lachshov alea kol hazman. You got to constantly be thinking about it. Letzapot la, to anticipate it. Litpalel alea, to daven over it. Litkonen likrata, to prepare yourself for it. Ve'im zeh, and with all this, barur lanu she'yi tavo ba'afta'a. And with all this prep, with all this pre-work that I do, I have to understand that when it happens, boom. It'll be such a shock to the system. It'll be such a surprise, and that's not a stira between the two. Now the question is, how do you prepare for something you never experienced before? Well, none of you were mothers until you were mothers. And even with your second child or third child. And how many children you were never a mother to 2 or to 3 or to Chana's here or to 81 until that happened. Like, meaning all these things, all these levels of experience never happened until they happened. So as much prep as you could do, the element of surprise will always be there. Now, there's a Maharsha. You know what the Maharsha was? The Maharsha in the back, and the Maharsha is one of the commentators on the Gemara. And the Maharsha says something here that I'm really inside struggling with. I'm trying to understand what this exactly means, and hopefully we could do this together. I'm going to ask your opinion as well. So, Mafli'im, look at the next paragraph. Mafli'im divrei Maharsha ma'amar zeh. The Maharsha says something wondrous. Hu masbir madua nichrach inyan HaMashiach dafka im mitzia ve'im akrav. The Maharsha always goes to the Agadatas and the Gemara, and he always has a beautiful perush in explaining these stories. So he says, let's try to understand why Mashiach is tied up here with finding a good find and an akrav, and a scorpion. So he says like this. Im zacha, if a person merits, yavolo Mashiach be'esech hadat shel metzia. Mashiach will come, and for you the experience will be like, oh my God, I found these, whatever. I came across this amazing find, right? Shesimcha v'tova yelo, that it will be as happy, joyful, and good thing for him. Lo zacha, yelo bias HaMashiach kesech hadas deneshichat akrav lera'alo. And if you don't merit, then the coming of Mashiach will show up at your doorstep like a scorpion comes and bites you, and it won't feel so good. Now, what's the problem? What do you think is the problem that I have with only because I don't understand the Maharsha. It's not that I have a problem, Khalila. But what when you don't understand this fully, what could arise? What could be the tension here? What do you think?
Be a negative experience.
Right, exactly. How could the coming of Mashiach be a negative experience? So the only other thing that I could connect this to is a statement from the Gemara also regarding a man finding a woman. Zacha na'asa lo samachayim. Lo zacha, do you know the rest? You're going to kill me, but I'm just... En ma lasot is the Torah. If a person merits, then it becomes the sam hachaim, the drug of life. Lo zacha, doesn't merit, na'asa lo sam hamavet. And it becomes like bitter like death, right? Meaning what? What is, when we're trying to tie these two things together, could it possibly mean that a person that experiences the coming of Mashiach without any anticipation for it at all, could it be, on a human level, that it'll be such a shock to the system that would affect the person, Khalila, at least in the beginning, negatively? According to the Maharsha? Right. So, hopefully that'll pass fast, right? Hopefully the beginning shock of it will be like a bite, but it'll pass fast. So I guess what we're trying to do here is to make sure that when Mashiach comes, for us, the way that we experience it will be like what? Like a metzia, bidyuk, like a metzia.
Is there like an explanation of zacha and lo zacha? Like how do you fall into the right category?
I think what we're saying right now, meaning if your life is a life of anticipation, davening, waiting for, preparing, then zacha. Then zacha. Lo zacha means I lived my life as either checkbox Yiddishkeit, one, or bichlal, not that at all. And then when it happens, it's almost like, but like imagine, just think like this for a second. This is a wild, but it's a very practical example. Imagine tomorrow, what's the Goyish day today? The 3rd?
Yeah, the third.
Okay, so Tuesday is the 5th, right? So imagine on tomorrow night in America, an American time, like at night, Mashiach comes. Amen Ken Yeh Ratzon. Right? But what's going to be with so many people whose anticipation and planning for what will be Tuesday the 5th, what on a human level, right? On a human level, on the way that we could relate to it. Can you imagine the response of so many people? What may it be, chas v'shalom? Thousands of years, right? One more day, right? One more day till we figured out, who is the next, that's kind of what it feels like. But I still go back to a different question of like, is Mashiach coming to the world? Can Mashiach come to the world still leave people in a world of doubt and limbo and unease? Isn't it supposed to be that confusion?
Zacha comes from the word zach, right?
That's a drush.
You're
I
really
know.
like working on yourself and everything, then you.
Meaning lo zacha. That's a good drasha on the drasha of the Maharsha. But I'll be the pshat of the Maharsha. He's just saying, if you merit it, the way we're explaining it, if your life is a life of anticipation, then when it happens, it doesn't matter at all what's happening in the world. Your fusion with the new reality is absolute peace and wondrous and full of love.
Can't this just be like an issue of Rasha'im and Tzadikim? Like if you're doing good, it's good. If you're doing bad, it's bad.
It could be. I don't know. It could be. Bemet. It left me the paragraph. Bemet. I'm sharing with you. Like I was learned it a few times, and it's a big siman shela. I have to speak. I have to ask. Much greater than me, but it could be. Definitely.
To me, it's still a little bit confusing because like there are certain things that are significantly more exciting than finding something, and significantly more terrifying than being bitten by a scorpion. Like
Right.
it still feels very random.
All we're talking about is the.
Scorpion as a real scorpion. Like I view it as like. I keep on thinking about him. Like
Yeah.
he was ready always, and then from what we saw, he wasn't for one
Split second,
take
right.
your eye off the ball for 1 second. I don't know why it keeps on coming to me
Right.
every time we say it.
Interesting.
It's like also these chayalim, like they're ready for something. They're ready, except for when it happens, they're just like that just came out of nowhere. How did that just happen?
Nachon.
Like I view it more in the
Problem is, would
in
you
our
say?
world, it's much more like
Right, but would you say
less
about them lo zacha?
I think that it's really, really hard to actually be ready. That's what I'm saying.
Of course.
I think that.
But that's important about this shir is that it's probably not even possible.
Right.
But that's part of this game, and that's a very. And we said
What
it.
do you want from us? Because you can't always be on.
Nachon, but you can always you could do the best that you can in terms of structuring your life to be a life of tzipiyah liyeshua, 100%. But the unhealthy approach, I think, and what we're trying to wipe out from here is that if you think that you could actually live in a state of being ready all day long at any given second for Mashiach to come, at a certain point, if Chalalila doesn't come, you're going to crumble. You're going to crumble, which means, and it's okay because the Gemara also says that Mashiach's going to come b'hesach hadas. Meaning, even the way the Gemara says, it says Mashiach will arrive even to the one that's fully, the lifestyle, you look at them, they're fully intact. There's, everything is about, they have the psukim, the brachas that are ready. There's cards that have brachas. Mashiach suitcase, like we said, like we learned a few weeks ago, like the Chofetz Chaim would live. They have all that, but even they would say, listen, at the end of the day, the manner in which it comes is not like anything else in the world. And we need to, our anticipation has got to be a healthy one.
So let's say that there will always be an initial shock. The question is, how long will it take?
Bidiyuk. Good question. Good question. And maybe that's what the Maharsha is alluding to. Yachol liyot.
And the more prepared we are, then the quicker.
Yachol liyot. Nachon. And would you say the same thing about birth?
Sure.
Probably, right? I mean, the more you, to a certain degree, yes. To a certain degree, yes.
Exactly.
Some people over-prepare. I think it is a yes because the first time is a very unknown.
Right.
And the second time, unless chas v'shalom there's some complications, you generally know what's coming. And for most women, it's a little faster. So yeah, the more you learn, the more you prepare, the more you have experience. Anything in life, the more you have experience of something in life, it helps you deal with something that may not
Right.
be in the
Well, the only difference is that Mashiach only comes once.
Right.
I hate to break it, the hearts of billions of people in the world, but Mashiach only comes one time, right?
Right. But
So
the
it's
more
not a
we
second
learn
time.
about it, the more we
Nachon,
prepare.
nachon.
In theory, but like my seventh came very quickly, and I remember so clear. I just kept on saying, "I can't believe that just happened. I can't believe." Over and over and over and over again. And I'm like, I knew that was gonna happen. It's my seventh, thank God. So it's quick, and that's all I kept on saying. So I mean,
Nachon.
we can't prepare.
Nachon.
But the coolest thing about like a birth plan is like I remember with my first one, they're like, come up with a birth plan, like exactly what you
plan.
want, and then I like made a whole list of all the things I wanted.
Yeah.
I came into the hospital, every single thing out the window.
Yeah.
Not a single
Right.
thing on my birth plan happened the way I wanted it, but it happened the way it was meant to be. But like I feel like that's like this, you know, like
Yeah.
you come up with all these plans, and then you know.
We are still trying to finish listening to Bina's playlist. There was 1.5 songs on that. That's how long our 6 with Mamash. We're still, we haven't finished her playlist, literally. Your hand was up, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I just think like when Mashiach comes, we're going to be the recipients of a lot of spiritual gifts that we can't even imagine at the moment. And that's a surprise. It's a continual surprise that, whoa, I'm seeing things more clearly, I'm hearing things, I'm understanding things more clearly. But if you're like too attached to what's going on in this world, it'll kind of be like, wait, I'm in the middle of doing X, Y, Z, and I'm just not ready.
Right,
You
right.
know, because I don't want to be distracted
Right.
from my worldly
Nachon,
endeavors.
nachon. So this, what you said right now is a great segue to the next piece, because now we're going to understand this based on the Alter Rebbe and the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he connects more to the tone of what you were saying. Yeah, Eva.
Some of these things are just making me think of like, I guess working like on our personalities, like Mashiach, like you were saying, it's like gonna be a big change. And like, not as humans, we don't always deal well with change, even if it's a really positive change. I don't know how that fits in exactly to like zacha or lo zacha, but like, how are we gonna approach it so that we're like zorem and I guess like excited about the change versus like jarred by it, I guess, or like not ready to like let go and like make a change.
Nachon. So I think that one of the great chidushim of Torah Chasidut is that when you're living and learning Torah in a pnimius way, with an expansive state of consciousness, you're less stuck on almost anything that has to do with things that won't last when Mashiach comes. You understand? You're less stuck. The manner in which I conduct my life, I don't want to say my religious life, because my whole life, gets me less mamash. It detaches me from being tangled up with a lot of the things that I normally would be. That's all I'm going to say for now, because it's true that, humanly speaking, even positive changes, if it's a change, there's a threat to a certain filtering system that we live with. But when I live a life... Sorry?
Like we can tend to be like creatures of habit.
Correct. Sometimes, most of the time, yeah. Yeah.
Like rocks your world.
That's why Rav Kook says that there should only be one habit that we are stuck to. V'targilenu, which means hergel, in what? B'toratecha. That's the only habit you're supposed to have. V'targilenu b'toratecha, and comes the Baal Shem Tov and his Talmidim and says, what does that mean? If you look deeper within every single mitzvah, there's an expansiveness there that can bring you to a world where this world and those things that hook you into things, you laugh at it. You laugh at it. And that's why I believe with all my heart and soul that the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov, of Rabbi Nachman, of all the tzaddikim that came from that base medrash, is the Torah that prepares us best for the coming of Mashiach, in order to avoid the shock system. If we're going to say, like the Maharsha, that the zacha means that you're not shocked, or that you're shocked in a What's that?
In a good way.
In a great way. In a great way. Yeah.
I just have another mashal that maybe, like, because it keeps coming to my mind, it can help, and maybe also, like, maybe it could be an exercise in preparing for Mashiach. I don't, has anyone here ever tried an ice bath? So you spend, first, you get trained, they tell you it's gonna be painful, it's gonna hurt, they tell you everything to expect, and you train your mind, you work on your breathing, you get prepared for it, and then, like, of course, when you first plunge in, there's not, your body reacts, like there is an automatic reaction, but there also is an expansion of the mind, because you have to allow for something that normally would have been uncomfortable for you, but you've already worked, you've anticipated and you've expected that it would be uncomfortable, and also trained yourself to know that you're going to be okay, and it's going to be a good thing, and there's going to be positive results. So it just keeps reminding me, like, it's a very similar experience.
It's becoming more and more big these days. There was a chayal that got out of Lebanon on Thursday night from Tkoa, guy that's been in for ages, and he called my brother-in-law and said, I can't come. I need the plunge. I just need the plunge to go in there, to take my expansiveness, to go into there. And my brother hooked him up on Friday, and he spent the afternoon going from hot to cold, because it's also a shita to go to like a hot, jacuzzi, and then go back into the. You have to get to the Medrash. You have to get to the Baal Shem Tov's mikveh Medrash. There you. Shem Yishmar. Okay. Now this is really. I thought we were going to get to this earlier, but this is where we're getting to right now. Tamid nufta. We will always be surprised. Besifrei me'orei hachasidus nitnu hasberim ma'amikim yoter lema'amar sheMashiach ba b'esach hadas. In Chassidus we understand this deeper. One of the explanations is echad mehem kasher Yehudi mitbonen svivo ve'en hu ro'eh shum makom she'hageulah tochal lavo b'matzav kaze. אף על פי כן הוא מניח את דעתו זו בצד, that's what he calls הסח הדס, ומאמין באמונה שלמה, אמונה שהיא למעלה מהדס, שהמשיח יבוא היום ממש. As you see the footnote, this is from a Sikha of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. What did the Rebbe say over here? What does hesech hadas mean? It means voluntarily choosing to place your da'at on the side, meaning taking what makes logic and sense to you and saying, hi, either enemy or friend. It depends how you're feeling that day about your chatterbox. I'm looking at the world around me, and it doesn't make any sense based on my logic that Mashiach should come. Nothing. It doesn't make any sense. If you asked me, if I, Chalila, was God, and I had to make the decision, does it seem like it's like this is appropriate, that this really makes sense for Mashiach to come right now? How many times in your life can you look back at like the world or Am Yisrael and say, it really adds up that Mashiach, it makes sense that Mashiach should come now, because look at us. It looks so beautiful. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe says, we're in the world's Meshuggah, and so often we're looking at the world and we would be asking ourselves, does it make sense for Mashiach to come right now? We would probably say, absolutely not. Great, the Rebbe says. That's why the Gemara says, Mashiach comes with Hesech Hadas, that you take your dat, you put it on the side, and Malka, this is very much referring to the stuff you were saying in the beginning of this series. And then you come and you say, I believe be'emuna shlema. Now, what does emuna shlema mean? Emuna shehi lemala mehadat. Emuna, that is above knowledge and intellect, because that's what real emuna is. The Mashiach will come today. Now, I would say, because it's such a sensitive time we're living in, maybe on October 8th, we all said, it makes a lot of sense that Mashiach would come today. Because we were certain that everyone's going to be in the same opinion, that Amalek needs to be erased, and we have to reconquer Eretz Yisrael. Like, we were certain, like, what's the question? And then Amalek still seeps in, metzitz, he's coming inside a little bit, and causing and spreading its venom and poison. amongst different Yidden, v'chulei, and it gets all confusing again. Even in those situations where you look at some of the hafganot, some of the rallies that don't make any sense to you, and definitely on the logical level make you think doesn't make sense for Mashiach to come at all right now. The Rebbe says, a Yid goes into a place with emunah shlema and says, I live above this. My emunah lives above this place of that this makes sense that Mashiach should come or not. And that's what's so hard. Because that's really forcing us to ask ourselves, do we really believe be'emunah shlema b'vias HaMashiach? Because emunah shlema b'vias HaMashiach means that nothing that I see in front of me would ever be a preventative or dictate to me whether it can or can't happen. Believing be'emunah shlema goes above logic. Are we ready? Are we not ready? All those things, emunah shlema takes me above that. That's one thing that the Rebbe said. Is that clear? Okay. Second thing, and this is beautiful and hard. I was discussing this with Rav Shlomo, who davened with us this morning, Rav Menumen, the Chabad Shliach and the Dagan. This is a very powerful piece from the Alter Rebbe, from the Tanya. The Sefer Tanya, if you see in the footnote, Igeret HaKodesh Siman Daled, the Sefer Tanya Musbar Shegilui HaMashiach, the revelation of Mashiach, the Tanya says, Hu davar shelemala mehadas, meaning as much as we're preparing, as much as we're anticipating, as much as we're learning about it, what do we do? What do we use in order to learn things? Das. What faculties of our being do we use in order to learn, to comprehend certain things? Intellectual faculties. Chochma, bina, vadas. Das being the highest one. But the Tanya says the revelation of Mashiach is lemala midat. It really is above and higher than the highest form of a person's ability to intellectually comprehend anything. Now, pause here. What could that cause me to say, or to think, to react, if it's above my ability to intellectually comprehend something? Apathy. Yes. Is that what someone said? Mm-hmm. Yes. Apathy. 100%. Meaning, if it's beyond my reach, lemala mitam badas, then what am I? How could I how could I connect?
I just felt like it's the opposite. That it's not an intellectual experience, but it's maybe purely an emotional, spiritual experience.
Correct. Now, to strengthen that even more, I want to just play not devil's advocate, but to point something out. Usually we could get to a place of apathy when we realize, wow, there's no way for me to understand this. Nachon? Let me ask you a question. Do any of you really understand the fact that human beings that play such a big role in your life came from you? You understand that? That makes sense to you? Did you actually understand that? It's a joke. We always have such a hard time understanding the bad. But we're totally cool with understanding, with not understanding. We're totally cool with not understanding at all the good, as long as it happens. But it just shows how it's a snake. It's the tree of knowledge. It's such a joke. Meaning, I just told you before that usually things, if we're told they're lemala mitam vadas, so I'll be like, then what's it worth even trying? B'chule. We already are filled with gifts in our life that we can't intellectually comprehend. We just accept them to be because they're given. But when it comes to Mashiach, I always find the greatest correlation to it would be that if one day God revealed to you who your children really, really are, like to really lemala mitam vadas, right? To understand, to see the connection, the revelation of between parents and children. That it's really something so much greater than all the tam vadats that we've given. Oh, she looks like him, she looks like her, she acts like him, she got that from there, they're complete chidushim, our children. Each child is a complete chidush that's bringing tremendous amount of light to the world. And Hashem said, and I'm going to send them down to this world through you. Through you. You understand that? Who understands such things? It's lemala mitam vadat. It doesn't add up any way you look at it. No matter how many books have been written on nature versus nurture and all these things, it's still lemala mitam vadat. So I'm just pointing out that it's good to remember at times where we can't understand the bad. How could God do this? We've never walked around a room and looked at our family and said, God, how could you do this? I need to understand. How could it be that I have this? Mashiach takes us out of that balagan. A Mashiach reality is complete. It's outside of that way of relating to life. So how do you anticipate for such a world like that? You start to not take anything for granted, and you start to realize, like Rav Shlomo said about every person you meet, you never know. Like you really never know who's in front of you, and you definitely never know yourself. You don't know who you are. Okay, let's go back inside. Sorry for that rant, but it's a very sensitive topic that is coming up so much this past year, obviously. בספר התניא מוסבר שגילוי המשיח הוא דבר שלמעלה מהדת. ביאס המשיח, the coming of Mashiach, הוא גילוי בחינס נקודה פנימיס הכלליס למעלה מבחינס הדת. I'm going to try to say these words as much as possible in our language. But the coming of Mashiach is a revelation of the innermost, the most inner point of the general purpose of creation, which is above our understanding. זו מתנה מלמעלה, שהאדם עצמו אינו יכול להגיע אליה באמצעות דעתו ושכלו. This is a gift from above that man cannot get to it just על פי ושכל, אלא הקדוש ברוך הוא נותנה לנו באופן שלמעלה מהדת. It's just that God gives us to us in a manner that's above our knowledge. Let me ask you a question, but I want you to really think about this for a second before coming to a conclusion. Are there achievements, are there things in your life that you've come to realize and experience that you could clearly say, this is a matana, it's lemala mitam vadas. It's above the state of my ability to comprehend. So we know that it exists. So it exists. Grant, we're basar vadam, lo kara klum. But we just want to establish that it exists. Do you understand the question? Ken or lie? I want to make sure this is clear. Can you look in your own life right now and realize that there are levels of awareness, and there are experiences that you've experienced and maybe right now are experiencing that were given to you as a gift, but you comprehend it. It's lemala mitam vadat, but you're able to absorb it in your life, and it's not due to how much you worked on something. It was given to you as a matana. The goal is to feel like this about everything, obviously, but it's not like that. It's not so simple. So this exists. This exists. To me, I'll just be very honest, it blows my mind beyond ways that I could express to you that this is how my week starts. Learning with you about Mashiach. It doesn't make any sense. I don't understand it. I mamish don't understand it. I could say, no, you understand it. There's a shul, there's a room, you decided what the shir is, people come. That's not how it really works. Do you understand do you not understand what I'm saying, right? Are you able to relate to the words that I'm saying? It doesn't make sense to me. It also does not make sense to me at all that thousands of 18 and 19-year-old boys and girls are protecting me right now. Even though I know, well, they are because they're called up. They're the ones that they get drafted, and that's how it works. These are things that are me'al tam vadat. They don't make sense. It's a beyond this world experience, and we're living it all the time. It's only a shaila of how much our consciousness allows us to be expanded to really notice these things and live in harmony with them. What did you want to say?
It's like something you knew about kind of dissociating.
Well, why do you dissociate with it?
Because it's too much for you.
Because it's too much. Because it's too much. Because if I really was aware. if I was really, really aware, it says about the Yid HaKadosh, Pshischa, he had like 2 teeth. It's a weird thing, 2 or 3 teeth. I asked him once, what happened to you? He said, one time I asked the Kadosh Baruch Hu to taste what it felt like when Avram Avinu first discovered monotheism, when he first realized that there's one God in the world. And God gave it to me for a split second in my human body, and I exploded. I couldn't take it. It was too much. So my teeth actually popped out. You know that I believe all these Hasidic stories, like I believe that this tablecloth is blue, right? Call me a fool. I'd rather be a fool than evil. But this is what it means. It's because it's too much. So Mashiach, right? Hashem gives us the opportunity every second the Mashiach's not here, so that it won't be too much when it happens. And that's why we have to look at it. So now next page. הרבי מלובביץ' מסביר שהיסח הדעת זה סוג עליון של ציפייה למשיח. The Rebbe explains that this distraction, this surprise state of being, is a higher level of anticipation of the Mashiach. אנו נדרשים לצפות למשיח לא על בסיס הבנתנו האישית בטוב שיהיה לנו כשיבוא המשיח. That's not... You can read all this stuff about how good it's going to be when Mashiach comes, and based on that, look forward to it. The Rebbe says that's not it. Aleinu la'asiach et da'ateinu. You have to be distracted. Even if you learn about it, you have to be distracted from the good, spiritual and material good that you know is waiting for you. Because if I'm just anticipating, because I'm told, by the way, when that happens, you know how good it's going to be here? That type of looking forward to is like someone that tells us that you're about to win the lottery. But that can't be. That's not the way we're looking forward to Mashiach. המחשבה צריכה להיות בדבר אחד בלבד. The thought about what it's going to be should be focused on one result and one result only. שתושלם הכוונה האלוקית בבריאת העולם. That God's purpose of creating the world will finally be completed. What's God's purpose of the creation of the world, according to the Tanya? להיות לו יתברך דירה בתחתונים. That there should be a dwelling place for God down here in this world. That's if you learn Tanya, that's the whole Tanya. That this world was created in order for Hashem to have a full-on dwelling place down here in this world. That's what this world is for. And that is what's going to happen when Mashiach comes, that this world will be a dwelling place in its fullest reality for the presence of God in this world. So this Rav is saying, Rav Brod is saying, that, and the Rebbe is saying, that's the only machshava you're supposed to have when you're thinking about what it's going to be like. Anticipating that. And we have to learn, and this Sefer, this year is understanding. What does that mean? What does that look like? What does it mean that God's kavana of creating the world will be mushlam? It'll be fulfilled. It'll be perfected. They'll be like, it's like this. God created the world, and when we hit this place here, or I would say maybe it's like this, or maybe it's like this, I don't know what direction. But all I only know is that it'll be a completion. And in that completion, that completed state of being, there will be the whole place will be a mishkan for Hashem, for godliness to permeate. That's probably a good word. To permeate the world, God's presence. Another explanation, הוא שאמונתנו בביאת המשיח היא אמונה שלמה שלמעלה מטעם ודעת, like we learned before. אף שהדעת והשכל אינם מבינים כיצד הגאולה אפשרית. The da'at, the mind, doesn't understand how is geula possible. Let me ask you an honest question. Only the guts here will someone that doesn't really care what anyone thinks about them will actually answer this following question. When I tell you Mashiach is going to come right now, what's the first thing in your mind that tells you it can't be because so-and-so? What's the first reason that comes to your mind that Mashiach coming just doesn't make sense? And how will it override this problem? What problem? but you're all ready for Mashiach, like complete.
A lot.
Just say one.
We're not ready.
Deserving.
We're not
Ready. What else? What else?
There's too much infighting.
Too much infighting, right? Which is basically the same, both of what they said.
He's
Because
not going to come until we're ready to go to Tachlit, and that's not happened yet. It's a catch-22.
that's what the mind says, right? Right. Just pointing out that you're right. Catch-22s are mind games. Nachon? Al pi the seichel, you're 100% right. But well, ma la'asot, the Rambam said, ani ma'amin be'emunah shlema. He didn't say ani ma'amin be'emunah shel chochma, shel Mashiach, beviat Mashiach. What else seems to be like, I'll tell you, for me, there's a very big thing. There's like, well, if we believe in the halacha, then in the reform world, in the conservative world, you have all these mamzerim, and you have all these problems with b'mash, like who's a Jew, who's not a Jew, how are we going to solve all those things, right? So you have to solve all those things first.
I thought that's one of the jobs of Mashiach.
Yafeh. Meaning you're just gonna leave it for him. And there'll be a sifting system. Said it. Great.
He has it, he could smell it. He could smell sense.
It's true. No. What you're saying is that sugya, we're going to learn it inside. We're going to learn that inside. We don't want to go into that yet. These are all things that the tam and the dat say to us, but how could it happen if this is like this right now? I think the greatest one is, like, look at us between ourselves. But I want to call out, I've been saying this for weeks already, I don't buy it. I don't think that there's as much sinas chinam as the media, this evil screens portray it. I think we're closer to each other than ever. I really, I see it. That's what I see. I see closeness. I don't know. I see closeness. And it's amazing. I've showed you before, like so many times, like what's controlled the world in people's mind is the back of this thing. I don't know if I have you can't see it on this, but I showed you so many times the logo that's taken over the world is a bitten apple. Do you realize? And this bitten apple is telling most of the world what truth is. Isn't that insane? Tam vadas, eitz adas. You never thought about that? Not just an apple, with a bite.
It's all I.
Nachon? Nachon. So this is all tam vadas. Let's finish up. Third line from the bottom of this paragraph. Etzem atana, ki en hador ra'ui lebias Hamashiach. Having a claim that the generation is not worthy or ready for the coming of Mashiach, hu siman muvhak sha'anu omdim al saf ha'geula. That in itself is actually seems like a siman, a clear siman that we're mamish at the brink of redemption. Because if it made sense to me, that'd be a problem. Because we're trying to go beyond sense. כאשר המצב הוא כזה שאין הדעת והשכל רואים שום מקום לבוא הגאולה, when you're in a situation that the mind doesn't see any place for the coming of redemption, הסח הדעת הזה הוא אות לגאולה הקרובה. This type of הסח הדעת is a sign for the geula, for the upcoming redemption.
What does close mean?
That's what a sugya. We're going to learn that also, because they've been saying that for quite some time now. There's a whole parak on that. I'm glad you brought it up. Although, if you asked our great-grandparents, they weren't talking like that. They weren't. This word close is really the last generation in our generation. They were not speaking in language of close until recently. But we're still going to have to learn that inside. Chalila efo le'asiach dat ma'geula. So what he's trying to say at the end of this paragraph is, you should never be mesiach your dat. You should never be distracted by thinking about the geula. It's still going to come in a surprising way. Hatzipiya v'amachshava la geula, anticipation and thinking about the redemption, hen habitui ha'amiti ve'ha'shalem shel ha'emunah bevias Hamashiach, is the real and complete expression of believing in the coming of Mashiach. V'ala mitzaper la geula ne'emar, And it says in Yeshaya Navi, Ashrei kol chochelo, praiseworthy and even happy is the person that live in a state of anticipating the coming of Mashiach. We have a similar statement we say every morning in Psukei de Zimra from Tehillim. It's a Torah from the Rebbe of Alexander. You would think, al pi tam vadat, that there'd be a change to the pasuk Yismach lev mevakshe Hashem. What should it say? Yismach lev motzei Hashem. That's what makes sense. Happy is the heart that found God. It's not what it says in the morning. We don't say that in the morning. We say Yismach lev, true happiness of the heart, is by those who are mevakshe Hashem. The bikush, the search for the most real things in life brings the real happiness. The finding is not what we talk about in this world. Mi shebechol zot choshesh shema tzipiya lo teafsher lo liot besach hadat likrat bias Hamashiach tanoach dato. So he says here, whoever is still concerned that being so much in a state of anticipation will not allow a person to be distracted when Mashiach comes, and then they will be in a lo zacha state, you could chill out, he says. Tanuach dato. Why? Sheken kechol sheyitzapeh v'yitkonen. As much as you prepare, as much as you anticipate, adayin ya'amod mufta u'mishta'eh mul otzmat ha'yitgalut ha'elokit b'vias Hamashiach u'b'geula ha'amitit v'hashlema. When it happens, it's still going to blow your mind and your heart and soul and everything about you like never before. The revelation of godliness, the revelation of love, the revelation of light, the revelation of how many tears formed this moment will surpass any state of feeling like this is what you were waiting for and you expected, even if you're thinking about Mashiach all day long. So I give us a bracha to not be scared, to up the tzipiyah game, to up the anticipation game, to not be scared of letdowns. And it doesn't work like that when it comes to Mashiach. There is no letdown. There's no letdown in this game. This is not a thing that has a letdown. This only takes you, permeates you, refines you more and more. And we know that the only consolation that can really, really console Am Yisrael today and console all the widows and the orphans is only this. All the projects are nice. I'm not belittling any of them. They're holy. But they don't really menachem in a full, complete way that hole in the heart. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Huh? En nechama acheret. So I give us a bracha to not be scared, to up our game over here, and you'll see how that tzipi, living this life of thinking about this and noticing it in davening, and learning more about what it means to live in the days of Mashiach. It's no letdowns. It only enhances everything else in our lives and on our surroundings. And please God, we're going to continue this next Sunday, Bezrat Hashem. Okay,